Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, he left his job as sous chef at one of the world's greatest restaurants, the French Laundry, to cook in Lincoln, Nebraska. We'll find out why, what he's serving up there, and get some great advice for all of us who cook at home. Here's Zach Midgett. Chef, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Great. How about yourself? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. So, you're in Lincoln, Nebraska. When people think about great food towns, with all due respect, and I went to school in Oklahoma, so I was close, not a lot of people think about Lincoln, Nebraska. What are you doing there?
It's a pretty funny story. I did get kind of recruited by a beef company, so the restaurant's more of an accessory to a cattle company and a bunch of ranchers and a bunch of land that's owned out in western Nebraska, but it just seemed like a pretty good opportunity, and when I came and visited 5 years ago, I just thought that this was just such an untapped agricultural resource. So many farmers and purveyors here, and just not a lot of restaurants that are taking everything available here and putting them together.
Well, are you, how do I say this politely? Do you have to educate the diners of Lincoln, Nebraska to the kind of fine dining you're doing? Not to talk down to folks in Lincoln, Nebraska, but again, it's, never been seen as a culinary paradise.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely meat and potatoes country, right? So there's people that come in and they want their heaping portion of mashed potatoes and a giant portion of steak at value. We're kind of doing the contrary to that. So local produce, we're making potatoes A to Z, like palm puree that's passed through, a tammy and passed through a chinois, and it's labor intensive. And you get, instead of 8 ounces of potatoes with a 4-ounce like ice cream scoop, you're getting probably 5 ounces of handcrafted artisanal palm puree served with a sous vide hot smoked steak. So the learning curve of a traditional steakhouse and then applying European cooking techniques to it and putting it right in the middle of the country where food's not necessarily the reason people travel here for, it has been a challenge. It has most certainly been a challenge.
Well, you got yourself a James Beard semi-finalist nomination, so you're doing something right.
I hope so. It's been fun. I've been enjoying the curve the whole time. So
I want to get into detail about what you're cooking these days, but first I want to go backwards and kind of mine your passion for food and how it developed. Tell me about one dish that has had particular meaning for you.
Yeah. One dish is probably going to be something that my mother cooked while growing up. She always used to do lamb racks on the grill. It was just the most simple thing. It was a grilled lamb rack that rested in mint jelly. And as you take a lamb rack off the grill that's probably at 130, 140 degrees, and you put it in mint jelly, all of that gelatin in the jelly will essentially just turn into a sauce. And the lamb, as it rests, it's going to leach out some juice and myoglobin as well. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like a sauce vinaigre, like a classic.
Oh, who? What? Who?
Sauce vinaigre. It's like a sweet, vinegary sauce that's served with like game meat. So like venison is something you would traditionally pair sauce vinaigre with. But in this case, it's lamb. And you get your sugar from your mint jelly and you get your meat juices from the resting lamb. And it all kind of marries together. And I just remember being a young kid eating that and being like, wow, this was not just everyday stuff. My mom was a good cook, but food was not like the epicenter of our household. It was often an afterthought. There was a lot of other, soccer was a huge part of growing up and my dad's business and all of that other stuff. We did have a home cooked meal every now and then. And that's one of the ones that I do remember was the lamb and the mint jelly.
Did your mom have a butcher or was she just buying this at the supermarket?
Just buying it at the supermarket.
The old stereotype is dad tends the grill. Your mom was the grill master?
My mom was definitely the grill master.
Where was this? You were in a suburb of Philly, was it?
Yep. This is about an hour outside of Philadelphia, a small town.
What part did food play in your childhood?
It wasn't that prevalent. I mean, other than driving home from soccer practices with my dad and getting pizza. Like I said, food was kind of an afterthought growing up. Once I turned 16 and I started working at the local restaurant as a dishwasher, that's when I started to really fall in love with kitchens.
Well, but let me back you up one second. You talk about driving home and getting pizza. Was this good pizza? Could you tell the difference? Did it matter to you?
The pizza was so good. I mean, any small Italian ran pizza shop within an hour radius of Philadelphia, there's no doubt that that is going to be significantly better than, I've lived in California, I've lived in the Midwest, I've lived in the East Coast. The pizza on the East Coast is just, it's on another level. It's the best.
What do you think causes that? Why can't it translate?
I think it comes down to ancestry. When you move here and you settle here and you take some very fundamental ingredients, you're talking about flour, water, yeast to make a dough. You're talking about tomatoes, which some of the best tomatoes in the country are grown in New Jersey.
Yeah, they are. And they're ugly. And people don't realize that the tomatoes that they get that are perfectly round taste like shit because they've been genetically modified to be round to fit in plastic packages.
Yep.
And the good tomatoes look awful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Can people tell the difference, you think? Have we lost the ability to really identify good food?
100%. 100%. And just knowing the intricacies of it, like you order asparagus in September, it's not asparagus season. It was most certainly shipped via plane or truck 4,000 miles across the country in a refrigerated environment, hopping around, hitting bumps or whatever. Like there's just no way it's going to be anywhere relatively close to when it's in season between like May and the first week of June.
Do most people care?
No, I don't think most people care.
Does that matter to you? Do you think we should more than we do?
Yeah, I think we should. And that's something I've most certainly tried to implement, probably in one of the harder areas of the country. California is there. People care about their food and how it's grown and that kind of thing on the West Coast. I do think it's trending in an upwards trajectory, but I think you're always going to have a percentage of people that just food is an afterthought.
People who have come to this podcast presumably have maybe more than an average interest in food. What should matter to them? I mean, you go to the supermarket and organic produce is twice the price of, quote, regular produce. Does that matter? Does that taste better? Does local taste better?
Not always. I think in some aspects, yeah. I do think that some of the best produce that you can get is going to be found at your local farmer's market.
But why? I mean, that becomes a cliche.
The reason why, in my opinion, is because of transport. Transport takes a huge toll on produce. And as you can tell, like cooking is all temperature, right? So does a cheese taste the same at refrigeration temperature between 37 and 40 degrees as it does, at wine cellar temperature between 50 and 60? Like, no, it's slightly warmer. So everything is significantly better, right? When it's just slightly warmer. And all of these kinds of things impact produce. So do we want to have asparagus that was shot out of a cannon from South America into the United States via airfare and ships? No. Go to your local farmer's market, buy the thing that was grown within a 10-mile radius of where you live. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be better than anything that you can buy at the grocery store just because of transport. Some of my greatest memories of produce was the laundry, working at the French Laundry. You would order garden produce and they would harvest carrots and they would come into the restaurant, never be refrigerated, processed, and then immediately served.
And the average diner couldn't tell at the French Laundry, if you're paying $1,000 for dinner, you're probably someone who can tell it. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're just so many of the people who go to a place like the French Laundry are doing it just to say they went there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, for me, I worked that station for a year and I got the privilege and opportunity to work with garden produce every day. Getting to touch it every single day and have the smell of the earth and the soil and knowing the difference between a carrot that was just harvested versus a carrot that was harvested and put in the refrigerator, that's not something I think many people can actually identify. But because it was a pretty substantial part of my career, now I really pay attention to this stuff.
Well, okay, answer some questions for me as an interested home cook. How do you get the most flavor out of vegetables? I have been told the following recently by some esteemed chefs. A, you gotta roast them. If you don't roast them, you're not going to get the most flavor. And then another chef tells me you gotta cook the living hell out of them until they're soft and look unattractive, but that's what they do in Italy. What should I do? What's the right way?
It depends how much time you have, really.
Let's presume I got all the time in the world. What should I do with my veggies?
There's 2 questions I would ask first. One, is this a commodity ingredient? And then the second one would be, is this an ingredient that's actually special, that somebody took care of growing?
It's a commodity. I went to Safeway.
Well, if that's the case, then you're going to want some sort of European vegetable cooking technique where they take shitty vegetables and they make them taste really good. So if you wanted to make a pot roast carrot, okay, I would buy some beef stock at the store. I would boil my carrots in that beef stock, and then I would reduce that beef stock into your classic pot roast stock that your mom maybe made in the crock pot.
Even though she didn't call it stock, it was just the juice.
Just the juice. Yep. And then, I would probably fry that carrot. So once they're cooked, they have all of that kind of like beef flavor in them. I would deep fry them at 400 degrees. They'd shrivel up, concentrate a little bit, and then I would reduce that the juice, until it was concentrated, and then lacquer that poached carrot that has been deep fried and then glazed in a reduced beef concentrated sauce. That's probably how I would approach that.
And if I'm using a really good vegetable, so I don't go through all that, what do I do with a really good vegetable?
Let it speak for itself.
Do you roast it? Do you poach it? What do you do with it?
Depends on the ingredient. These white asparagus that come from Holland that are like $37 a pound, basically equivalent in value to a filet mignon from a price per pound standpoint, you don't have to do anything with them. You just poach them, grill them, and try to keep them as natural to their original growing state as possible.
We'll be right back. Back to your story. So food didn't matter a whole lot to you. Then you're 16. What happens?
There was just some weird stuff going on at home. So I used kitchens as a way to not be home. I realized, okay, holidays, long hours, intertwined with school. Now I have a really good reason to just go to work and focus on my craft and just kind of not be home. The Washington House was a staple in my hometown, known for being relatively close to fine dining, which later in my career, I, reevaluate that, but they also did 400 or 500 covers on a given night because they were connected to a theater. So that was like the cream of the crop in the hometown. That was the place you go, you take your dates to. But I started as a dishwasher there for probably 6 months. At this point, I guess I'm a junior in high school. My senior year, I really enjoyed it. So I did a work study. So I would go to school for 2 or 3 periods, leave at noon, and then I would go to work until 9 o'clock. So I got my high school diploma going. It was half academic, and then the other half was actually going to work.
How did you cross over and start cooking?
One of the cooks there was cutting a cheese wheel and used his entire body weight in an extremely unsafe manner and cut his hand. And then the next day it was like, okay, we need the next person up.
So his medical emergency made your career.
Pretty much.
Had you been thinking, I want to cook? Or did you discover the presumed joy of it after being pressed into service?
People ask chefs, do you love food or do you love kitchens? At some point later on in my career, it turned into food. In the beginning stages, it was 100% kitchens.
The excitement, the adrenaline, the swearing and drinking, what?
Not necessarily the swearing and drinking. The Washington House most certainly was not that kind of place. But the long hours, the teamwork, the camaraderie, a lot of the things that I saw in kitchens that helped me be successful were things that I already learned in sports.
Yeah, you were pretty big into soccer, right? You were good?
I did okay. I played at a pretty high level up until my sophomore year of high school, I think. So that's when I kind of had 2 knee surgeries and realized that I probably shouldn't pursue this anymore. Anyway, the lessons in sports provide so much value to career trajectory in culinary.
The teamwork, the selflessness, the what?
Oh, the teamwork. And if you're on the salad station and you're not keeping up, the entire kitchen team is over there on your station, bailing you out. It's the same thing as if you're playing defense and Lionel Messi goes past you, you're going to feel...
Well, Messi's going to go past pretty much anyone, so...
100%.
So you don't go to culinary school. You're working at this venerable old restaurant. You start cooking. When did you say, A, I like this, and B, I'm really good at it?
I was always just naturally competitive. When I walked into a kitchen, I was like, okay, there's all this staff here. There's 10 people here. I'm going to try to be better than everybody around me. That natural competitiveness, also still having the opportunity to be around a team, is really what just made me truly enjoy it.
As I understand it, you worked for several restaurants sequentially in Philly, and then you became a sous chef? This is all from learning on the line?
Yeah. So after the Washington House, I'm very, very grateful. One of my original mentors, Nicholas Basic.
I've had him on the podcast.
Have you really?
Yeah. What's he own now? I can't remember.
Provenance.
Yeah, I had him on the show.
That's crazy. Yeah, he was one of my first real mentors. He's the one that brought me into Philadelphia when I was 18 years old. As soon as I graduated high school, he said, come work at Bistro La Mignette. It's going to be the same thing as going to your first year in culinary school.
But how did you know him? Why did he take a chance on this high school kid?
Nick had a band called Your Midway Host. I'm not sure if I should be saying this. I don't know how many people he wants to know, and that he was previously a musician, but at this point, our relationship's good enough. I don't really care. My brother was the drummer, and my brother's 8 years older than me, so that was the connection there. Suddenly, Nick's, I'm not going to pursue this music career anymore. I'm going to go pursue this culinary thing, and here we are 15 years later, and he's got a Michelin star, which is crazy. It's just very cool for me, because I was sitting on the sidewalk with him after his service at Bistro La Mignette when I was 18 years old, and he described to me what Provenance is today on that sidewalk 14, 15 years ago.
He had a vision.
It's so cool to see it come to fruition.
You talk about the teamwork of sports. There's also the broader culture of sports where competitors who respect each other from different teams have friendships and such. The food world's kind of the same. And those relationships, well, it goes 2 ways. Either those relationships last forever or some guy whose kitchen you left to work elsewhere hates you forever. But it's all passion, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%.
So get me to how you became a sous chef. For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, there's a line cook and then up the ranks. What's higher, sous chef or chef de cuisine?
Chef de cuisine.
Okay, he's kind of like the assistant executive chef, but sous chef, you have control over what?
Every kitchen is structured differently, and it depends on the amount of staff that you have, whether or not you have executive sous chefs, and chef de cuisines.
But basically, the sous chef, what's the management element of that job?
Depends on if there's more than one and how many stations there are, but usually they're just managing cooks, dishwashers.
So are you cooking at that point, or are you managing?
Depends how good your team is. And again, on the kitchen, if it's small, that sous chef's probably cooking. If it's a huge restaurant, 500 plus covers, that sous chef might be expediting. That sous chef might just be standing there with a clipboard.
So where did you become a sous chef for the first time?
First sous chef job was Worcester. That restaurant's currently closed in Philadelphia. That was just a connection with Nick that I had, and I took advantage of it.
And did you go straight from that job to California?
I did, yeah.
You have no training. You've worked at a few restaurants in Philly. You get your first sous chef job. And if I understand correctly, you're hired to be a sous chef at the French Laundry?
No.
Okay, what I read is wrong. Tell me the story.
There's an important phase in my career that is in between the Worcester job in Philadelphia and in between Bistro La Mignette. So in between those two jobs, I did work at a place called the Mainland Inn. And this is where the connection gets really weird because in the early 2000s, the French Laundry used to buy guinea hens from Mainland Farm in Harleysville, Pennsylvania.
Okay, and just to be clear, the French Laundry, Thomas Keller's three-Michelin-starred restaurant in California, legendary. Many people consider it the best in the country. Okay, continue. So you're working at a place affiliated with a place that he gets his game hens.
Correct. And at the time, the opening chef, his name was Ezra Duger. And again, I have to just thank Nick, owner of Providence. After my year at Bistro, I was like, I'm kind of done with the city. I don't really want to live in the city anymore. And he's like, you should go work at this place in Harleysville. So this is like an hour outside of the city. It's perfect for me. You know, I got some French Laundry alumni opening up this 100% organic farm-to-table restaurant out in the middle of nowhere. That was what really set up the trajectory for my careers because all of a sudden I'm where I want to be, working with a product that I really want to work with. Trucks would show up with like 8 lambs whole from the farm and 10 rabbits and 20 guinea hens.
You may be excited by that, but there's a lot of people who can't get past the Easter Bunny element of what you just talked about. Back after this.
For me, this was a very important part of my career, and I worked with Chef Ezra, the canapé chef at the French Laundry in 2002, I think it was.
Now, that's a niche job.
Yeah.
I'm the canapé chef?
Yep. So this is the guy that basically cooks for all the VIPs at the French Laundry and usually puts together the oysters and pearls.
Caviar on top of an oyster on top of tapioca, right?
Essentially, yep.
It's Keller's signature dish.
Yep.
Which I read he invented after he was in the supermarket. He saw a box of tapioca there called pearls. It said tapioca pearls, and it got him thinking, and, you know, pearls come from oysters, and there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've interrupted your story. So you know this guy who was the canapé chef. Somehow this is going to get you to the French Laundry?
Yep, that's exactly what it was. I submitted my cover letter to the French Laundry while I was working at Worcester, which was after the Mainland Inn. And I included Chef Ezra and his wife, Sandy, who was currently on the pastry program at the French Laundry. So I name dropped them in my cover letter. I sent it to the French Laundry. Sure enough, I got an email back and they invited me to come out on Thanksgiving.
How do you have the brass ones to say I'm good enough for the French Laundry?
I definitely did not. I went into it with, I think what was the right mindset is, and it's always been this, is I have a lot to learn.
But what'd you say in your letter? I have a lot to learn. I want to learn it at the best place in the world, or what?
I was grateful enough to have a connection with Sandy and Ezra. I think that was my foot in the door there.
You weren't hired as a line cook there, right?
Oh, no. I was a commis.
What's a commis?
Prep cook. Everybody pretty much starts as a commis there.
That's the bottom of this. But you worked your way up to sous chef there, right?
Yeah. So I was there 3 years and I probably spent 6 months as a commis. I probably spent a couple months on garde manger. I probably spent about a year on entremet, which is that station that's basically you're just cooking all of the sides for the protein courses. And then I spent a couple months on meat. And then after that, the last bit of my tenure there was a sous chef.
Many people are going to say, of all the hoopla around this restaurant, it's hype. It can't be worth it. What's the big deal? Okay, chef, what's the big deal? Is it all that good?
There's enough systems in place there and enough staff. There's like 100 staff and they do 120 covers during my time. I don't know if that's expanded. So you're telling me that there's 100 staff and there's 120 covers. That's almost one staff to one guest. So I think the service is going to be the best experience in the country. And I think the food, you're starting with luxury ingredients, the best ingredients you can possibly source in the country, like Elysian Farms lamb that comes from Pennsylvania. That's lamb racks that are $70 a pound.
So you left Pennsylvania to cook with Pennsylvania lamb 3,000 miles away.
Isn't that crazy?
What'd you learn in the kitchen there?
Oh man, so much. The mentorship and the systems. There's just all these things that you don't necessarily think about until you have to open up a restaurant. Okay, now we have the garden. Now, how do we get the produce from the garden cleaned to the restaurant? So this is just a very fundamental system. Sounds very easy, but setting up those systems and writing out those clipboards and figuring out what produce you're going to have in what month and how much of, and is it going to support this dish? You really learn what questions to ask, and you really learn how to handle conflict in an appropriate manner. And some of the lessons there are just, I remember being on the meat carving station, and if your knife's not sharp, DB will come over there and he'll grab your knife and start honing it on the back of someone else's knife.
Who will do that?
During my era, it was DB. It was Chef David Breeden. We're bringing in Wagyu from Kagoshima, Japan. It's the best product you can possibly get your hands on. We're paying all these extra fees and overnight shipping, and it's packed with dry ice. And, the butchers went through all of this work to make sure that it made it to the meat station. And then you have a dull knife when you go to carve it.
Aside from risking injury, how is a dull knife going to screw up the Wagyu?
When you're carving at a Michelin-star restaurant, your carbs, they need to be 100% perfect. You cannot afford carving a chicken breast and having a little piece of striation of muscle. It needs to be a clean, perfect cut, and you're only going to be successful on the carving station with very, very sharp knives every day.
At a time when restaurants are closing because people can't afford to eat out, has a restaurant like this become an anachronism?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that restaurants struggle the most when recession hits, when oil prices go up and all that stuff.
There was all this controversy over Noma, the former best restaurant in the world, according to lists. They opened a pop-up in LA, allegations about mistreatment by the chef, Rene Redzepi, resurfaced. There's all this brouhaha about whether people should be spending, I think it was $1,500 a person to eat there. My question is, does it make any sense to be spending this kind of money to eat anywhere these days? I mean, should places like the French Laundry even exist?
That's a great question.
That's why I asked it, Chef.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing there is there's just some major generational wealth in this country. And there's people that buy plane tickets based on what is most affordable. And there's people that filter out their search results for what they want to buy based on what's most expensive. I have money, I come from generational wealth, and I can afford to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And going back to your question, should it exist? It's a fair question.
Does it make you feel good to cook for those people?
Sometimes, yeah. Because not all of them are like that. And some of them are very humble. I don't know, like John Legend was just a super cool guy and donates a lot of his money. And he came in several times at the laundry. And, those experiences felt good.
Well, I'm not questioning your ethics or morality because you worked at the front, even though I guess it sounds like I am, but that's not my intent. So you're working at this place that is a level above. And someone says to you, why don't you move not even to Omaha? You're going to Lincoln. Why the hell did you make that decision? And as I ask the question, you're sitting there thinking, yeah, why did I make? Seems to have stumped you, right? Maybe rethinking your past.
At the end of the day, it comes down to what you value and what you want to do. I don't think I want to live in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Philadelphia.
Napa, that's where you were.
Napa was wonderful, but I spent $900 a month for a 20 by 10 foot bedroom that I shared a bathroom. Now I have a house. So this was like the first opportunity where I got an offer where I have enough money to stack away to support whatever it is that I end up doing in the future. Own a house and take everything I've learned over the past 10 years and do something here that no one's really done before.
So who came to you?
It was the owner of the beef company. His name's Shane Pete. He found me on LinkedIn, and then I flew from San Fran to Omaha and ended up cooking for Tim Dillon. He's a comedian. That was kind of my interview, was I had to cook for him and a bunch of other people that were in the restaurant.
Famed Nebraska comedian Tim Dillon.
Yep.
Okay, I'll look him up when we're done. This restaurant, it's like an arm of this beef company?
Yep. So huge beef company. It's called Certified Piedmontese. And the irony is the meat is polar opposite to what I cooked for 3 years at the laundry. So laundry is Japanese Wagyu, pretty much everything, Snake River Farms, American Wagyu. So Piedmontese is a cattle breed that's emphasis is on lean.
It's literally descended from the beef of the Piedmont region of Italy?
Yeah. So a couple cattle came over from, I think it was the 1980s or 90s.
Well, I'm assuming a male and a female.
Yep. So now the herd has grown pretty significantly, and the restaurant is utilized as like an accessory to the cattle company.
And the restaurant is Casa Bovina?
Casa Bovina, yeah.
What's bovina mean? It must be bovine.
Cow. House of cow.
House of cow. Okay, fine. They fly out there, and the restaurant is already going, right? What, they're losing their chef, their executive chef?
Yep. So the opening chef, his name's Ben Maids. He's pretty dominant in the state of Nebraska from a culinary standpoint. He opened up the restaurant. He was there for about a year, and then he left. And there was not a chef for a couple months. Then I came in.
According to what I read, you looked around and said, I got to make some major changes. No disrespect to your predecessor.
Yeah, I mean, there was absolutely no disrespect at all. Because he left, and then there was months of kind of just nobody really managing the kitchen. So it was like a whole fresh start by the time I got there.
So what'd you do?
Ripped all the coolers apart. Put labels up, organized them, made stations, made clipboards.
You're a systems guy. You implemented systems.
Yeah.
Apparently, you're a big fan of the French Brigade system. You watch The Bear and everyone's going, yes, chef.
Mm-hmm.
What is that system? Explain it.
For me, it's structure. I think people do well in structured environments, right? So, if you start as a commis, which is in other words a prep cook, then the natural evolution of that could either be a butcher or a line cook, which in the French Brigade system is a chef de partie. I think it provides structure and it gives young cooks an opportunity to grow because they say, this is where I want to be on the schedule. This is the station that I need to work at. This is what I need to do to get there. It just kind of puts stations and jobs into a category.
It also has been blamed for fostering a horrible work environment with discipline turning into yelling and screaming and abuse. Am I wrong?
Absolutely not. That was definitely the way of learning in, the 90s, most certainly the 80s and 70s, maybe even the early 2000s. Yeah, you could most certainly argue that the brigade system is part of a hostile work environment, but you could also just say that those are forgotten educational techniques, not part of modern education. You can still apply the French Brigade system. You don't have to scream and yell and throw things to get results.
Did anyone ever scream and yell and throw things at you when you were starting out?
No.
So you come in, institute systems and order, but it's about the food. So what was the vision you had? Did you change anything?
Oh, yeah. When I first started, the menu was kind of all over the place. There was some very Eastern Hemisphere dishes on like beef bulgogi.
Korean, yeah.
Things of that nature. So it's like the first thing I'm going to do is make all of this food European. Italy is the focus, right? But as long as it's European, my goal was to just streamline the cuisine at first. And I spent a lot of time finding local farmers, cheesemakers, polenta mills and flour mills and produce and all that stuff because we didn't have an on-site garden.
You think of Nebraska, I think of beef, but I'm not sure I think of polenta.
Oh, yeah. Yep, there's a Millard Women Farms polenta, and they got an old stone mill, so they put the dried corn in, and 2 giant 1-ton pieces of stone kind of just turn and spit out polenta. So that happens here, and that's pretty cool.
And produce?
Produce, yeah. Asparagus is huge in Nebraska. We get so much asparagus every week just from right outside the restaurant. There's a giant field. This is an area I never thought I would live. I never thought I would end up. I knew nothing about. So yeah, I had to go out and go to the farmers markets, find who was growing what, who can get it to me, what prices were, and just kind of become familiar with the area.
Are you raising chickens and stuff?
Yep. We probably got about 60 chickens. We have 2 chicken coops and we built a huge run in between them. So this chickens can either go in the coops, underneath the coops for shade, or go in this giant 40-foot by 8-foot run that we built. All of the kitchen trimmings that we're producing throughout the day are fed to our own chickens, and then we're paying somebody to harvest the eggs, clean them, bring them back upstairs into the restaurant, and then they get turned into pasta.
You're hand-making pasta?
Oh, yeah. The chicken eggs are primarily for the pasta program because the egg dough that you get from a beautiful farm egg are going to be significantly better than anything you buy from a commodity food purveyor. But sometimes we'll just do an estate fried sunny side up egg with some beef tartare and toasted brioche. And that's really just the beauties in a local egg that is just beautiful.
You talked about the beef you use being lean. I bet that's great for beef tartare.
Oh, yeah. It's the best beef tartare.
And by the way, what's the hang up with Wagyu? I think it's too fatty.
Oh, I 100% agree. Yeah, Japanese Wagyu, they rate it on the marbling scale.
It's all fat.
But there's people that like that, and that's totally fine. And certified Piedmontese is our cattle breed, and we pride ourselves on it being super lean and very tender and having minimal marbling.
But if fat is flavor, what's the flavor profile?
Just lean and tender beef. And I've been eating it every day for 5 years. So just the actual flavor of the beef is just so much better. Fat is flavor. I don't know. That's just a sentence. And I understand that in some culinary aspects. But in the case of beef, like sometimes you just want beef flavor and you don't get that from fat.
How do you cook the steaks?
We are actually going to sous vide them. And then in that same oven that we sous vide them in, we turn into a hot smoker. They're basically just all kind of like par cooked to about rare. And then when service comes, that oven turns into a state-of-the-art combination hot smoker. So we'll put wood chips in it and there's a fan blowing around smoke at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll kind of briefly smoke the steaks for about 4 minutes and then we'll mark them on a grill and then we'll rest them in a butter bath.
Ooh. That's a bizarre, unusual combination. Now, how should I cook a steak at home?
It's all user preference. I mean, when I'm at home, I kind of just turn on the grill and mark it and flip it every 2 minutes and make it nice and easy.
Yeah, they've changed the rules on that. It used to be don't play with your meat, and now it's flip it repeatedly.
Oh, yeah.
When did that happen?
It's probably happened when these guys wrote it probably happened in food and cooking. I'm sure Harold McGee talks about it somewhere in there, or the chef from El Bulli, or the chef from that wrote Modernist Cuisine. Basically, when you leave your meat on one side too long, all of those cells start to connect and you essentially end up with what's called a ring of death.
The gray part on the outside.
Exactly. Yep. So basically, the only way to avoid that is to flip it every 2 minutes, give those cells on the exterior of a steak an opportunity to chill down before all of that heat conducts from the grill through the cells more inward to the steak.
You think we're getting any more? I mean, steak and potatoes are traditionally Midwestern. Do you think we're getting more adventurous as eaters?
Yes and no. I mean, there's still always going to be that demographic of people that live anywhere that just want steak and potatoes. But people are definitely being more adventurous these days. I mean, we have a tasting menu that is pretty successful for being in the outskirts of, so like I didn't even move to Lincoln City. Like this restaurant is in the outskirts of Lincoln, 15, 20 minutes away from downtown Lincoln. So like it's really just out there. And from a tasting menu standpoint, we've been pretty successful. Probably 30% of our sales are tasting menus. So we got people in Lincoln, Nebraska spending $185 per guest on a 9-course tasting menu.
I'm looking at the tasting menu and I guess it changes repeatedly. So I don't know how current this is, but you're offering quail with black garlic in an albufera sauce. What's that?
Yeah, they're North Carolina quails. We take a bunch of wild onions, roast them, mix them with mousse and foie gras, and stuff it into the quail and hot smoke it. And then that's served with a warm onion salad, blanched onions bound with onion bechamel. Think about like creamed peas, but instead of creamed peas, it's like creamed onions. And then there's a black garlic puree. And then salsa bovina is we take all the quail bones, roast them, make a classic stock. We introduce some cream, reduce it down a little bit, and then we mount a bunch of microplane shaved smoked foie gras into it. So at the end of the day, it's this onion stuffed smoked quail, warm onion salad. There's some ramps and chipotle onions, and then like a quail jus that has a bunch of beautiful rich notes from foie gras.
Ooh, I'll be right there. You've got a kielbasa pasta?
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen?
We bred a certified Piedmontese cattle with an American Wagyu, and we got this very special product. There was 10 head of cattle that were harvested in May that were all American Wagyu. So that line of cattle is called Cielo. So we're going to have our own American Wagyu here in a couple of years. But yeah, we've been making some Cielo kielbasa, not really fitting to Italian cuisine, but most certainly European.
You're owned by a cattle company, so I would guess you're one of the few restaurants that could be a loss leader if you have to be. Are you making money?
Oh, yeah.
Again, not to talk down to Lincoln, Nebraska, but you got enough of an audience in that town to keep you going? Or are people coming from Omaha? Are they flying in from someplace else?
Yes to all those questions. People are flying here for business meetings. Like we had a major camera company. It was cheaper for them to fly from New York to Lincoln, Nebraska, do a tasting menu here and fly back, then go out into New York and get the same experience. We're getting random things like that that have just contributed to the success.
How bad a shape is the American restaurant industry in?
It's tough. The prices that you need to charge to be successful, like if you picked Casa Bovina up off the ground and put it in the middle of Chicago, our prices would instantly double. And that's just the nature of being somewhere where real estate's high and everything just costs more to get. But we're fortunate enough to be in the middle of Nebraska.
Do you one day want to own your own place?
I think so.
To do what? What kind of food? What kind of cooking? It's your dream place. What do you want to do?
Probably something 50, 60, 70 seats, somewhere in there. Tasting menu only, dinner only, no lunch, no brunch, none of that stuff. Something somewhere in a community-driven place where hopefully there's mountain biking, I do really want to serve just tasting menus.
Why?
That is, from a business standpoint, where you actually can make the most margins. As long as you're willing to put in the work, you create a group of guests that are willing to come back. As long as the food's good, they'll keep coming back. But I think tasting menus provide the highest opportunity for product utilization. So you bring in a duck and you get 2 duck legs, you get 2 duck breasts, and then you get some duck livers, and then you get all the duck bones. So in my brain, that's like 4 different dishes. We're talking about duck liver pate on toast. We're talking about a duck breast course. We're talking about a duck confit course. And now we're talking about potentially a duck bouillon. So I think having the skill set of knowing what to do with raw products only really fits in a restaurant with a tasting menu concept.
Because when all is said and done, you can't produce great food if you can't make enough money to stay open.
Absolutely.
Chef, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, chatting with you. Good luck where you are now and down the road, getting your own place where you can utilize every piece of that duck.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Zach Midgett on Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. I'll see you next time. And tell your friends to check us out wherever they get their podcasts.